All right.
All
Hello.
right, we are live. Welcome back to Rubberducking Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Charles.
And I'm your co-host, Mike.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in every single week so faithfully and also asking us questions. So, in the spirit of faithful audience, we've got a question from our audience.
Ooh,
From
exciting. All
Matt.
right. Let's hear it.
So let's hear it. Yeah. So it says, Charles, love the podcast is exactly something I've been looking for. And it says, despite being a horrible place to be, the North Korea, I'm wondering if there are certain things about the culture and daily life that defectors miss. Perhaps cuisine or certain activities with neighbors. Tell us about the friendship in North Korea and how they differ from Western culture. Is there that sense of jong? It's like a jong is like the closeness, right? Or like a how do you explain
Yeah,
jong?
that's
Yeah.
hard to it's a sense of
Attachment.
well,
is it attachment?
I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll call it attachment.
Like whenever you, so here's the thing, right? So whenever whenever you had this thing for a long time in your life, and when you
Right.
throw it out, like you want to keep it, right? Because
Oh.
it's like you're so attached to it. So it's like it's kind of like an
Wow,
attachment.
that sounds like Midian, not Chung.
Median?
Yeah,
Really?
but well, I'll put
Oh.
it kind of like friendly love.
Yeah, friendly love.
Right, like loving your neighbors, kind of a thing. Being
Yeah.
compassionate towards them, empathetic towards them, and wanting to care for them.
Yeah.
Because you've grown maybe attached, or you've grown accustomed to just living life with them,
Yeah.
and then that becomes the basis for you to continue to care for them in ways that are actually active. Right, you do things for them or
Yeah.
help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very unique concept. Not necessarily unique to Korean culture,
Yeah.
but we have a very specific word called chung that
Yeah.
describes that
Yeah,
whole sense.
yeah.
So yeah,
And he also said, Chong about is there that sense of Chong that you're missing that you don't see in America? If so, do you think it's more of a Korean difference of the culture and not necessarily North Korean? How's Chong different in South Korea compared to like North Korea? I feel like that's what you just answered, right?
yeah, right. I think every culture has a little bit of this.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if a culture is more community oriented, more collectivist as opposed to individualistic, I think that is a good breeding ground for this concept of chung, or these kind of feelings to cultivate among a community. But enough about that. Charles, tell us your story of what do you miss about North Korea?
I mean, at this point, like I tell people countless times that, well, I have told countless times that, like, I mean, like, my friends, right? My friends and families. And I told them, like, coming to America feels like getting into time machine and fast forwarding like 70 years into the future.
We
right?
explored that quite a bit in our season 1.
Yeah. It's because, like, I don't know, it's just so fascinating to me to, like encounter this foreign concept, foreign culture of like 24-hour running electricity, or 24-hour running like hot and cold water, and all of these kind of different things. And therefore North Korea is much more of like they're much more in nature focused, right? The reason is because the reason is because like there is much we can do. Like there is no electricity, first of all, so we can't play games, right? Any kind of video games. And there are no social media, so we don't have Facebook. Like I mean, we literally have like FaceTime, like a face-to-face time.
Physical face-to-face time. Not
literal like
FaceTime.
in sense of that. So therefore, everything is much more like outdoor activities, right? So our life is basically sun up and sun down. Like when sun comes
no
up,
artificial
we hang
light
out.
Right
Right, yeah. So we do have candle lights,
Right.
but it's not as effective as
That's
like,
right. That's right. You
it's like
can't
bright
have
lights like this.
conference meeting or anything. Maybe you can.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would say like the one thing that I really miss, right, about North Korea is like hanging out with friends, and here's why. So during summer, right, and we are hungry, like we're really hungry, and we're not eating, but it's at certain times in our lives, or a certain time of the year, like a harvest like time, right, during fall, like September, or like closer to October, like we gather together during the harvest kind of seasons, like summer, like August, right? And then we gather together, and then we bring like things from our house, like somebody brings like burning wood, somebody brings like a pot, somebody brings like salt, somebody brings pepper and oil.
Nice. It's like potluck.
And the pot, exactly like potluck. And then we bring that and we go to Taedonggang. So Taedonggang is like the river,
big
right?
river, yeah.
Yeah, and then we catch fish there.
Wow.
And then somebody brings rice as well, right?
Wow, and the nature brings the fish.
Yeah,
to the
and nature. But you have to catch it though.
I see. It's not free.
It's not free. Yeah, it's not free.
Yeah.
You have to catch it. It's like that's another whole topic that we can get into, like how there's not much of like a wild fish or like wild animals in North Korea, because for the past 70 years they've been just like constantly fishing, constantly hunting, and constantly.
People need food to eat.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's like kind of dried up. But so we will do that, and then we'll cook outside. And we'll just eat together, and we'll have fun, and like those kind of like outdoor physical activities, whereas in America, it's more of like, hey, let's do a LAN party, it's like, let's bring our computers together, let's play video games together. It was more of like hanging out with my friends, right? And just
physically
hanging out with some, like, my friends instead of like being on online. That's one thing that I personally miss. For other North Korean vectors, I think it all like differs, right? Based on like where they're from, like because the culture depends on like where they're from.
That's right.
So yeah, it could be differ. And let's see. Food too. Yeah, I really miss North Korean food. Like the fake meat pop, right? Injogibap,
that's
fake
right.
meat pop, and like tofu and rice, and sundae. There's like so it's like in North Korea, like, I mean, I think it's in Korea too, right? Korea also has a sundae, right? It's like an intestine. Like
it's like a pig intestine sausage. The casing is made out of pig intestines, and inside it's like, in South Korea they use glass noodles.
Yeah, but
is that the same?
No, but in North Korea we put rice and like vegetables in there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, rice and vegetable and blood, and it's quite good. And some people put tofu as well, so it's quite good. And also like during winter, like the culture is that during winter, like during the like a dinner time or breakfast or lunch, we have like the fireplace, and we put like 감자 and goguma, like a potato and sweet potato in there, and just like bake it, and then like that smell of like a baking sweet potato and
I see.
potato, it just smells so good. So
wow.
it's North Korea. It is a nice place to be, because, well, A, the air is clean, B, the water is clean, right? And C, it's untouched by mankind. So
right.
it's very pure. Like nature is really nice. But one thing that is not nice is the government, right? The regime.
That's right. It is a beautiful place in terms of the natural environment, and I actually got to visit.
That's right. Yeah, you went to the
Kumgang Mountain.
Kumgang Mountain.
It was beautiful. I mean, the water was so clean you could drink it right off the stream.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember bringing that. I brought I filled my water bottle with North Korean water. And brought it back to South Korea, and I gave it to my mom. We drank it together, and then I gave it to my math tutor. My mom was like, "Oh, this is special North Korean water for you." And I do want to say, listening to what you just said there, there is a lot of that in South Korea too. I remember going to say like church camps or school trips, and then outdoor cooking, some nature activities. So. And I truly do think that these are things that happen across not just different cultures of humanity, but also throughout human history. Like people have always enjoyed this. And there is something very essential about having these physical time in nature, with the people that you love, that is core to what we want and desire to experience.
Right, we're social creatures. Like we need those kind of companies. Like we need like each other to live. Yeah,
and I like that you mentioned that, because it's often when you think about North Korea, easy to shift your mind to like, oh my gosh, people starving, under horrible conditions. But the fact that you bring these things and you're, actually, in isolation, good memories
Yeah.
points that these are the same people as we are. They
Yeah.
would be living lives like we are if they were here.
Yeah.
And then if we were with them, like then we would also have the similar struggles. So hopefully
Yeah.
this helps eliminate the
Misconceptions,
misconceptions that perhaps they're any different, or they deserve less or more, whatever.
Yeah.
But we are all people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I also should say, because you did say North Korea is a good place to be, that's talking about the nostalgic parts, right?
Not actually, we're not
Yeah.
There was a
condoning
yeah.
anybody think that North Korea is the ideal utopian escape.
No,
That's what the regime wants you to think.
That's what they
But
want
that's
you
not
to
the
do.
reality.
Nope,
So
nope.
please don't take
Yeah.
weird sound bites out of this.
Yeah. It's I mean, like I do want you to go to North Korea, but after the regime falls and after it's
Of course.
like, North Korea being free.
Yeah.
And also, like like the last question was that, like, how is Jong different in South Korea compared to North Korea, or is it the same? I guess it's basically probably the same, right?
Yeah,
it's like
I think
I think it's
so.
from like before the Korea got separated, right? And though, like in South Korea nowadays, I think it's a little different.
I
Like,
think you're right. I think you're right.
I think it's way different. Like, for example, like compared to Western, right? So when you think about like Christmas, right, we think of that as like family time, right? We hang out with like
That's right.
our family, and also sometimes like we visit friends. But in South Korea, Christmas is much more like towards like couples holiday,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not like family time. It's I think South Korea also is in a way like I'm not sure the entire South Korea, but at least like in the crowded in the heart of like the city, right? Those are much more like individualistic, whereas like a family.
Yeah,
wise,
that's right. So a lot of kind of nuclear families, and also these days, a lot of people who live alone, actually, they have separated out from their parents, their like, family home,
Right.
but they haven't married yet. They don't have a partner yet, so they live alone. And one thing I will say though is that, let's see, comparison of shoot, and now it's escaping me. Escaping me. What were you saying about the South Korea Chong?
Yeah, it's like it's individualistic, much more of like if you look at Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas. So yeah, I do want to point out that Christmas is a Western holiday.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not actually one of the biggest holidays that's traditionally recognized in Korea. So in South
Thanksgiving
Korea,
is much more of like a Thanksgiving is much more of like Chuseok, right?
Yeah, Chuseok is the Korean
National
equivalent
holiday.
of Thanksgiving. So if you think about, like, if you want to do apples to apples comparison, I would say if you look at how Korean people celebrate Chuseok versus Thanksgiving, it's actually quite similar. It's very family oriented. But another thing that I would say is that a lot of people, especially young people, have used that long holiday opportunity to, instead of going to do traditional things with their family, because sometimes it could be a little more ritualistic than like we're gonna get together, spend time as a family. Depends on the family culture. But so some people who feel a little burdened by the fact that, I have to travel, see family, and I feel like I've done this enough, they would opt to go on a trip, like an overseas trip. So you're right. The individualistic kind of influence of the Western culture, and not to blame it on the Western culture, has definitely pervaded South Korea.
I think it's a good thing, in a way that like South Korea, like when I visited South Korea, like I realized how like westernized it was. Like the one thing that I was looking for, did I go over the episode yet or no? Probably not, but I don't think I've spoke about going to South Korea. I
don't think you did.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because where are we in your story? Like you're just making it to your coding boot camp and haven't actually been out there yet, have you? In our story, in your chronicle.
Possibly. Sorry, it's been just long. But I mean, what I was saying is that like the short time that I got to be in South Korea, I felt like it was a small New York. It was like a smaller and much cleaner version of New York. Because it was just so crowded, so many people, and like because like as I was stepping into South Korea, I had this kind of expectation of, like, my home country. It's like I wanted to feel this kind of like nostalgic kind of Korea, like it's my motherland,
Yeah.
But I could not find that anywhere. It's like concrete roads like everywhere. It was literally like a concrete jungle.
It kind of is, yeah.
Well, I mean, Seoul is like, I mean,
it's
a concrete jungle.
You have to find like rural areas. Not find, they're available, but it's you kind of have to go to the outskirts of the city,
right, and
to
even like a
get kinda
countryside. in order-
nostalgic North Korean vibes.
Yeah. But I could not I could not find that.
Mhm.
I think the other thing is that like North Korean culture has been shaped, like it has been shaped so much with those Kim dictators, right?
Uh-huh.
Like everything has to be centered around the
Right.
Kim's family.
Uh-huh.
So like the national holiday, like Chuseok, right? That's
Uh-huh.
not the most celebrated. Like Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il's birthdays are the most celebrated holidays in North Korea, right?
Right.
And like we do activities like around that.
But it's not about the family.
It's not
at
about the
all. Okay,
family.
right,
It's
that makes
about
sense.
like literally getting up like 5 a.m. in the morning. We dress up. We bring a flower, and then we go pay respect to like Kim Il Sung's like a portraits, right? As like a neighbors. Like
Yikes.
we go no, literally we go all together, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
so that's kind of like how North Korean culture has been shaped.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be weird when North Korean like regime falls, right? And
Do you think any of those people who grew up doing that will still, after the regime falls, still want to celebrate those days, you think?
you know, that's a great question, and I feel like some people will, because it's just like
Wow.
some people
I
like
mean, they're brainwashed, right?
yeah, some people it's just so deeply embedded into their, you know, like a daily
Yeah.
life. You know, it's like they're it's like it's part of like who they are. It's
That's
part
right.
of them. You know, so
Yeah.
they might do that, but I mean like, and also there's sometimes like people like me, you know, whereas like rebel against the regime and just
Well, I mean, you also told me, however, though, that it took you years until you were able to like, wait a minute, it's actually the leaders who are bad. You
yeah,
didn't directly blame them for
I mean in
even
America
after coming
until
to
I
here.
came to America, you know, I was
Right.
like, I don't know. I think it's the fault of like the local regimes,
I
you know,
see,
that
yeah.
actually
Mhm,
brainwashing. I
mhm.
mean, that actually lying to us,
Right.
and lying to Kim Jong
Right.
Il.
And then the Kim's family was faultless. So
Yeah,
you believe
yeah.
that. Wow.
But it wasn't. So, Matt, great question. Thank you so much for asking that question, and I hope that answered your question. And if you have more questions, please do let me know. Please
Yeah.
email us at info.rubberducking@gmail.com. That would be great.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Going back to my story, the chronicles of my
Chronicles of Charles Ryu.
Chronicles of Charles Ryu. So where were we last time? I think
You
we're-
were about to tell us a story about a friend who
Yeah.
worked at Link. I'm curious
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so you know, here's the so I think it kind of comes to like the North Korean. It's a very sensitive topic, right? Because
Okay.
yeah, and it's just my personal opinion, and I'm not well educated on this topic
Uh-huh.
either. But I just want to share my honest thought, right?
Yeah.
It's so so when I was working at Link, I met a friend named Jessica, Jessie, and she's a North Korean defector, and she escaped around 2015, and she came to South Korea, and she
Mhm.
had resettled in South Korea, and she had a dream, and she was a hard worker, and she, wanted to, really thrive in South Korea.
Uh-huh.
And then she came to Link, and apparently she actually did thrive. So after we left Link, like she was doing business, and she was on BBC, and
Oh,
all
wow.
this kind of like news areas. She actually met with Angelina Jolie, and
What?
actually cooking North Korean food for her as well.
No way.
Like, yeah, Angelina Jolie, and
Huh.
she was meeting all these K-pop, stars. And
Wow.
she was literally
She was
like,
big.
yeah, she was really big,
Uh-huh.
right? And then all of a sudden, like, I don't hear anything from her. So I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, what happened?
And she has taken her own life.
What?
Yeah. So this is kind of like misconception, right? And sometimes like people think that like especially in South Korea, right? I mean, this is kind of like a very controversial topic where like North Korean defectors, when they come to South Korea, like they take tax money, and they don't do well, and they don't do like they're just like here to waste take our money and take our resources,
Not give back.
yeah, not like a contributing member of the society.
Okay.
But I mean, like Jessie's case was like the complete opposite, right? She was like the most successful person in right? One of the most successful like
Uh-huh.
North Korean defectors like cases because she was a proud business owner
Uh-huh.
and she ran North Korean restaurant and she was meeting all
Wow.
these celebrities and doing all of these things.
And was this mostly based in South Korea?
That's right. Yeah, it was
Okay.
based in South Korea. And I don't know who's at fault, but she got into like some sort of like a debt, right? Running business. I don't think it was. I don't think it was like. I don't think it was like
So it wasn't like a gambling debt or anything.
No,
It's
no,
just
no. It
from
was
her
like
business
the
dealings.
business is like
Yeah.
business perspective. It's like it's like selling the food is not making enough money.
Right.
And then there was like
it's
some
easy
sort of
to
like
get into debt when you're doing business.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was like a legal process where
Yeah.
like who's gonna and there's like and Jessie actually which I admire her like I like we're close friends and when I learned that news it literally completely broke my heart because she has come all this way she has come like all this way to
all that escape effort
and also
journey, making it this far.
and just that and what's the saddest part is that she tried to reach out to many different people about this issue. It's like, hey, can you help? Like I, don't have enough money and I don't think I'm as successful as, what this medias are, trying to portray to be. Or
So do you think people ignored her request for help because people thought that she was well off already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So like, yeah, that's what I've been hearing was that, a lot of organizations were backing her up, right? That's like using her story to fundraise, right? Using her story to do this and that and that. And when she actually reached out to those, organizations, like they're like, oh, they're laughing at her. It's like, no, you're one of the most successful North Korean defector. Like, don't worry about that. The money will come in all in time. You don't need our help. Like, I feel like we need your help. And turned her down, right? And that actually got just so, the burden was just so much, right? And because people are expecting so much out from her, and when she reached out for help, she gets turned down immediately. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I meant by like sensitive topic is that, it's like taking their own life, and it is a tragic, right?
Yeah,
especially with like North Korean. Like she's strong. She was very, very strong woman. Like the 3 months that I got to spend with her, right? Like we lived together in the same house for 3 months.
Oh yeah, in the link house. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we're actually traveling together, and we ate at the same table. We shared our stories at the same events, and literally just sharing our emotions, our thoughts,
Wow.
and knowing that, knowing what I know and also like what happened to her, it was kind of heartbreaking, and I also blame the organizations for that too, right?
And was this during her tenure at Link while she was working for Link?
After
she left. Okay.
After she left from Link,
I see.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's also partially the reason why I left Link as well, right? It's like I really want Link to help. Like I wanted to help refugees who actually resettled in the free world, right? Because North Korean refugees, they don't really know how to live, right? Because in their entire life they have been brainwashed. They're there are some people who are very smart, they can figure it out. Like they have no problem just living, and which is great. And there are many people like that, like including me. I did struggle, right? But eventually I stand on my 2 feet and I learned to walk and now I'm running, so which is good. And that's an example. And if we have the right platform, if we have the right support, like we can do this, whereas like Jess's case, like that's like the one complete opposite.
That's right.
And that's the reason why I wanted to like raise awareness. That's the reason why I wanted to actually start the whole thing as a podcast as well. Is partially because there are many people, not just Jesse, but there are actually many North Korean refugees who have actually taken their own lives in South Korea.
Right.
It goes into like 10s and 20s. I mean,
how many people have.
Yeah, number of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have to give credit to South Korean government because they do have very specific regimen to educate the North Koreans on how to readjust.
Right,
But
right.
like you said, like they need to catch up on, I don't know, 60 years of
60 plus years,
civilization development
Yeah.
and democratization of the world, and so much. I mean, even the language is like different, like the way people speak,
Right.
the way people
So
think.
westernized, yeah.
So whatever limited support the South Korean government is able to give, like some people might say that that's already too much, that they give them the housing and then the cash, but considering the gap that they need to fill,
Yeah,
it is
70
not
years.
enough
Yeah,
to
70
fill
years of
that.
the gap. Yeah, and North Korean North Korean refugees, they risks their life getting to freedom, right?
Mhm.
And once they arrive, like they don't have anything.
Right.
They don't have anyone.
That's right. People.
Right.
It seems like that's what's really hard is that there's no people around them.
Right. Yeah.
right,
And
help
that's
them.
why South Korean government is so nice is that they provide those kind of support for them.
Right.
Their support for them, but it is good, right? But it's not the best. Right? We need to teach people how to fish instead of feeding them the fish,
That's
right?
right.
And because, like, that's also the thing too. Like, you get like so when you this is like a North Korean defectors like the process, right? So once they come to Southeast Asia, and then they are processed to come to South Korea, they spend about 2 to 4 weeks at this international refugee camp in South Korean embassy.
Oh.
And then once they come to South Korea, they go through 3 months of 국정원, which is the
National Intelligence Service.
Yeah.
It's Hanawan, right? That one?
국정원 and then Hanawan.
Oh, I see.
So
the NIS investigates them first to make
Yeah,
sure they're
3
not a
months,
spy,
right,
and
yeah.
then they get released to do a kind of a re-education.
camp for 3 months.
Yeah,
So
I
total
see.
of 6 months
A
of
good
like,
kind of re-education.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
have to,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, like, there is no way that South Korean government is just gonna be like, oh yeah, we'll accept you. Like, how do I not know that you're a spy?
Right.
How do we know you're not a spy,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So that makes sense.
Yep.
But like in that 3 months of time, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
what kind of skill can you learn, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough time to learn something very technical, right? And it is a long enough time that like a government can actually support, right? Longer than 3 months, that's kind of unrealistic,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's why South Korean, the re-educational, basically the re-educational content is more of like, oh, how to be a mechanic, how to
Right.
paint a nail, how to, drive a taxi, how to,
Mhm.
do this, like the practical kind of
Right. Like
like
vocational training.
Yeah, vocational training, which is good, but is that sustainable? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, is it like it will actually help them to survive in a couple of months or maybe a couple of years, but is it sustainable for their entire their lives, right?
Right.
And this is when we actually have to kind of like figure out, right? Like South Korean government, they're doing everything they can to actually help North Korean
Right.
refugees, and they are actually getting the help, right? But and actually help them to just like head start, like start their life in South Korea.
Yeah.
But what we don't have is like, okay, so once you start, right, we need to figure out how to lead you so that you're actually playing the end game instead of like
To more
trying to like
opportunities.
be in the game.
Right.
You're thinking about like the end games, kind of like a breathing moments too, if that makes sense.
I
Like,
see. Okay.
so what I'm saying is that organizations like Link or non-profit organizations comes in, right, and gives them like, hey, there is like these kind of training programs that could take 2 to 3 years or even like 6 months, right? Takes long time, but it's gonna be a great investment for your life, right? So we teach you like coding skills, for example.
Yeah.
Right. We teach you coding. We teach you how to do this, and we introduce you to like this kind of companies so that you have like necessary skill sets that you need to equip. We're gonna equip you with like this kind of skills to actually get a job, right?
I see.
Like get a real job, like not just like working at a restaurant. Because I've personally worked at restaurants,
right,
and driving Uber and Lyft, it's not sustainable. I mean,
Right.
it is for, it is for surviving,
That's
but
right.
it's not for living,
And not for thriving.
not for
either.
thriving. Yeah.
it seems that another kind of important component of this is community. And
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I can't help but go back and think for your friend Jessica's case that had she been harnessed with a really close community that really knew what was going on, not just judging her for what seemed like an outwardly success, it does break my heart a little bit because, like you said, all this effort that she did to find freedom and save her life ended up in another tragedy. And do you think it would be helpful if there was a more concerted effort to also provide some sense of a community for folks, to North Korean folks or whoever else, right, who's resettling, so that they don't feel like they're alone and they're helpless?
Yeah, I think it's introducing them to a community, right, and creating this kind of community, not an organization,
I see.
a community,
Yeah.
right? It's
Just like people like you and me or my neighbors,
right,
Yeah.
neighbors. Just like, hey, we put this thing on together,
Uh-huh.
once every year, we try to invite North Korean refugees, and just like we hear you, we listen to you, we try to plug you in with different resources, and if you need
Yeah.
anything, reach out to us. Not so creating that kind of community would actually help her a lot. And having that kind of connection to not just like all of these like outwardly, like
Right. The organizations have, I mean, for perhaps with good intentions, like we talked about, but ended up having to focus more on sustaining themselves than being really true to their mission. And it is an impossible, dilemma at some point, it seems. The organization, in order to, carry the mission like Link, to keep the refugees like out of, China or North Korea to the land of free, wherever that is, they do need to operate with certain budgetary limitations and things like that in mind. But for organizations like Link to really be proud of their work and succeed, it seems that there's more social and even sounds like a cultural shift that's necessary, so that the whole society is on, okay, like these are our brothers and sisters. Let's help them a little bit because they need it. And
collectively,
often, right,
instead of being so divided in like
right, and it's not even about the money. Just let's be a friend to them. Like imagine if the Jessica's neighbor had a listening ear, things might have been different. Even if that neighbor was in the similar situation.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's and I do want to address the listeners here that we set out to do this show not because we have solutions, but because we wanted to bring this to your attention so that more people know about it. And perhaps you listening to us or us talking about it can bring some insight to, okay, how do we make sure there's no second Jessica in the future? So thank you for entertaining this. And this is really hard stuff. And I also want to say that if you, as you're listening, or it's someone is struggling with mental health issues and is potentially at risk, and then you feel like you're alone and helpless, there is help available. Many other organizations, not just organizations, but people. And thankfully in the United States, we have also national infrastructure such as the national line 988. You can text 988 or call 988. And if you're experiencing any psychiatric emergency, feeling like wanting to hurt yourself or the others, please do reach out and seek medical help. I think that really could make a huge difference. I mean, Jessica, as alone and scared as she might have been, she had people like you, Charles, who cared for her. And I want to just put a message out there that there are people out there who care about you, who love you, and are concerned about your well-being. So I really hope that today's heavy message didn't really impact you if you're struggling with these things, and if it is you, I hope you can find help. The help is really out there.
Yes, we are at time, so we will need to say goodbye for now. And thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We'll hopefully come back to you with much more brighter and happy stories.
Yep, more happy stories to come, I'm sure.
Yes.
But thank you for just weathering with us. Sometimes these topics are hard, but we're really thankful that you're with us to just wrestle with this with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
See you next
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.